हेलो गाइस, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल लर्न टेक विद स्मृति। तो आज का जो टॉपिक है वो सॉकेट कम्युनिकेशन में यूडीपी प्रोटोकॉल के थ्रू हम कैसे डेटा को ट्रांसफर करें, वो हमारा टॉपिक है। जैसे कि टीसीपी हमने पहले डिस्कस कर लिया था, तो आज का यूडीपी स्टैंड्स फॉर यूजर डेटाग्राम प्रोटोकॉल। तो यूजर डेटाग्राम प्रोटोकॉल्स में प्रोटोकॉल के थ्रू कैसे डेटा ट्रांसफर होता है, कौन सी क्लास यूज होती है, हम फर्दर देखते हैं। तो सबसे पॉइंट इसमें जो कुछ पॉइंट हैं, वो फर्स्ट इट इज कनेक्शन लेस कम्युनिकेशन। Like in TCP, we need to establish initially connection, then we transfer data from client to server. But here we doesn't need any connection. It is like video streaming, in which we doesn't need to connect any establishing any connection. So second point is it is unreliable just because of connectionless protocol. एंड क्लास की बात करें तो इसमें क्लास जो यूज होता है वो डेटाग्राम सॉकेट यूज होता है। लाइक इन टीसीपी देयर इज अ टू क्लासेस यूज, सर्वर सॉकेट फॉर सर्वर साइड एफटी and socket for client side FT, but here only one class, datagram socket, because here is no connection establishing, and this is faster way of communication as compared to TCP communication. And example is like video streaming. And next is client and server code. So this is our main class which is in both, and this is our main method. So this is one I wrote it in middle because it common for both. So this is server code. Here we also need to port number as in TCP protocol. So port number is 1234. We can take any number, any random number, but only condition is that the port number should be also have the client. So next we create the object of datagram socket, which I tell you initially that's it. Datagram socket class is used for communication using TCP UDP. So we create the object of socket, datagram socket class. Here we pass the port, that in that port we are working. So this port is passed inside the datagram socket class for creating object. Then this return a FD. For that socket is used for data sending. So for receiving data, because it is a server, so initially it doesn't send. Whenever a client is send data to server, then it respond back to. So for receiving data, used a buffer, initially declare a buffer, byte buffer of 1024 size. And again for this class is used for sending as well as receiving the data, but the parameter of the class constructor is different. Like here only two parameter we use, that buffer and the length of that buffer, because we want to receive that data. But in case of sending, we use the same class, but the number of parameter is more. Like we send port number and IP address in which we want to send. So it is a receiving case. So create the object of datagram packet class. Here we pass this buffer and buffer length. That buffer is passed for reading the data in this buffer. And after that we call this socket, FD is used, and dot receive. This function is receive the data in this packet. After that we can fetch the data using packet dot get data. Get data function return the string whichever it receive. This is our receiving the data. And in let's see for sending, declare a string that want to send, like a string response is hello client. So I declared a string that I want to send as a response, and here we take a response buffer because it is a string. So in network we can't send directly string in case of UDP, but in case of TCP we can directly send a string, integer, or any type of data. Here we convert it into bytes. This get byte response buffer data is converted into bytes through res.get bytes. And now this is datagram packet class, which is sending response used for sending response to the client from where it gets request. So here new datagram packet, and in parameter we use packet.getAddress function. Here there is a parameter like res buffer in which our data is stored and length of that. And next is packet.getAddress. This get address function is doing that from the client where it get the request, then packet.getAddress fetch the address of that client for sending the response. It fetch the address of that client. As you know, in receiving we pass only two parameters in the in same class datagram packet, which is a buffer in which we want to read, and a length, that how much maximum data we want to read. But here this packet dot get address is used for getting address, and get port is used for getting port, like client port. And this is socket dot send, bypassing buffer, send the data to the client. And socket dot send function is used here. And next move on client side code. Here client side, this is message because initially we send the request to the client, to the server, then we got the response. So first need to send the data, then we get the data. So this we take hello server as a string, and port number, as we know that in server side we use 1234, so we use here 1234. And port address is localhost because I use both client and server in same system, so I use localhost. If you use other system for client or other system is for server, that both system is connected with network, so instead of localhost you use IP address of that system. And next move to that class datagram socket was used for creating the socket FD for transmitting and receiving the data. So here there is no parameter pass for creating objects. Socket FD. This return a FD that. And next this is byte buffer in which we store our converted byte uh, for sending into network, because in network we can't directly send the string. So as you know how my message is hello server, so hello server is converted to the bytes, which is message.get bytes convert and store into message buffer, and this message buffer send the bytes. And now next is init address class. This class is used for getting the address, that we know the host name like server name, and for that server name we know the address for sending, like in YouTube streaming if we send any comments as, so we don't know directly address, so in backend that type of handling is occurs. So next is datagram packet. You this same class is also used in server for accepting and sending data. So client side is also used datagram packet for sending and receiving process is same as client and server. So this datagram packet class create the objects And here, uh, because of sending, here use four parameter as already we see in datagram packet dp new datagram packet, and we pass this buffer length, and this address which we get using init address, and this port number. And next, after that, for this port number, and next socket dot send, which is used for message buff, sending message buff. After that, for receiving response of the server from the server, we take a buffer, allocate, then again creating the object of datagram packet class and the new datagram packet, and here we pass this buffer.